quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My name is Jaden Carter. 3 years. That's how long I was married to Camila. It wasn't a fairy tale, but I believed in us. We met at a community fundraiser where she volunteered, running the silent auction table with a smile that pulled me in. Her laugh, her easy charm, the way she balanced being a mother to her teenage daughter and still found time to care for strangers, it just felt good. Maybe that's why I ignored the red flags. When we married, I didn't just take on a wife. I took on her daughter, Lana. She was 14 at the time, hesitant, guarded, cold even. I put in the work. I drove her to school, cheered at her volleyball games, stayed up late helping her factor equations. Over time, she started calling me dad. I wore that word like armor, proud, protective. I thought we were a family. But love, real love, can't compete with greed dressed as opportunity. Camila worked as an executive assistant at a tech startup. Her boss, Grant, was everything I wasn't. Smooth, wealthy, flashy. I was just a middle school teacher. I wasn't broke, but I didn't drive a Tesla or fly off to Miami on a whim. I gave stability, not excitement. Things changed slowly. Camila started dressing differently, sleek, expensive. She came home later and later, telling me she was helping Grant with late-stage investment meetings. She stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped texting me back during the day. Lana, once bubbly and eager to chat with me, began to grow distant, dismissive. Then, one Friday night, Camila called me into the kitchen. She stood there with the same calm, polite face I had first fallen for. Jaden, she started. I set my coffee down. Yeah. She didn't even bother to soften her tone. I'm moving out. I blinked, trying to catch up. Moving out? Where? What? She folded her arms. I'm with Grant now. My coffee mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor, the sound like thunder in the quiet kitchen. You're what? I asked, my voice shaking. It's for the best, she said flatly, her eyes cold. Grant can give me and Lana a better life. I glanced over her shoulder. Lana was standing there, arms crossed, jaw set. She didn't say a word. Her eyes didn't even flinch. You've done okay, Lana had told me. Voice hard, eyes steady, but Grant's just on another level. Mom deserves more. We both do. It hit like a punch to the gut. I couldn't even argue. That night, I packed 2 bags and left my own house. I couldn't breathe in those walls anymore. Everything felt tainted, sour. I let Camila take the furniture, didn't fight for the car, signed the divorce papers without contest. She didn't ask for alimony. Grant was footing the bill now. After all, I moved into a 1-bedroom apartment near the school where I taught. The place smelled like old carpet and broken dreams. But sometimes loss is the greatest teacher. Over the next few years, I rebuilt. I took on extra classes, saved every cent, stopped thinking about Camila and Lana. Therapy helped, so did long runs and late-night journaling. I poured myself into the work. Eventually, I was promoted to vice principal. Then, by some twist of luck, my brother and I turned a summer side project, an education software app, into a real business. 3 years later, we sold it to an edtech company for 7 figures. By then, I owned a house again. A real one, with a garden, a home office, and walls that felt like mine. I even started dating again, slowly, carefully. I hadn't heard from Camila or Lana since the day they left, until last fall. It started small, a friend request, then a message. Hey, I know it's been a while. I'd love to talk. Can we meet for coffee? I didn't respond. 3 days later, an email, then a voicemail. Then Lana messaged me. I was young and stupid. I miss having a real dad. I ignored them all until Camila showed up at my school. She stood by the front desk like a parent waiting to pick up their child, clutching her purse with a white-knuckled grip. Her face looked older, worn. The designer clothes were gone. There were lines around her mouth that hadn't been there before. Grant left, she said before I could speak. He's bankrupt, Camila blurted before I could even get a word out. Her voice was small, shaky, nothing like the confident woman who'd once told me she was leaving. He drained everything and walked. Turns out he was hiding debts. We lost the condo. Lana's taking a break from college. We're staying with my sister now. I stood there, arms folded, heart steady. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting around the office lobby. I made a mistake, she admitted. We both did. God, I thought he was the answer, but he just used us. I should have never walked away from you. I let that hang in the air. She reached for my hand. I stepped back, holding my ground. I gave you everything I had, I said, trying to keep my voice level. My trust, my heart. I was there for your daughter when her own father disappeared, and you two threw me out like last year's phone. Her shoulders slumped. I know, she whispered. But maybe we could start again. Even just as friends. I looked into her eyes, searching. Maybe there was sincerity there. Maybe there wasn't. But it didn't matter anymore. I've moved on, Camila, I told her. You walked away for something shinier. And now that the shine's gone, you're looking for shelter. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I was already turning, already walking away. That night, Lana sent me one more message. I thought money meant everything. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I didn't reply. Some people only see your worth after they've already sold you out. Let them. But you don't have to open the door when they come knocking. Some stories don't need second chapters. Sometimes walking away isn't just the best choice, it's the final one. 2 weeks after Camila showed up at my school, things went quiet again. Or so I thought. Then came the letter, delivered to my mailbox in a pale blue envelope with handwriting I hadn't seen in years. It was from Lana. Inside, a 4-page handwritten apology. It started off like a confession, then quickly twisted into something else, manipulation. I was a stupid kid. I thought Grant's money made him a better man, but he hurt Mom. He hit her. And when the money ran dry, he left us with nothing. You were the only father I ever had, and I treated you like garbage. But maybe you can still be there for us. You always were the fixer, the provider. Please help us. I read that letter once. Then again. Maybe it was sincere, but it was also soaked in desperation. They didn't want me. They wanted security. And just like that, the past came clawing back again. I shredded the letter, watched the pieces flutter into the bin, and told myself it was over. But Camila wasn't done. It was a rainy Friday night when I heard the knock on my door. Heavy, desperate. I opened it to find her standing on my porch, drenched, mascara running down her face in black streaks. In one hand, she clutched a cheap bottle of wine. Please, she said, her voice breaking. Just 5 minutes. I don't know where else to go. I hesitated, but then stepped aside. Maybe I needed the closure. She sat down on my couch, shoulders shaking, fingers trembling around the bottle. I lied to you. She started, staring at the floor. About everything. I didn't say a word. Grant and we didn't just fall in love. She continued, voice cracking. I started sleeping with him before we separated. I told Lana because I needed her on my side. I needed her to believe I was making the right decision. And I justified it by convincing myself that you'd be fine without us. I stayed still, breathing slow. I refused to flinch. But the truth, she whispered, wiping her face, he never loved me. I was convenient. And when his company tanked, he left me for an investor's daughter. And now Lana, she won't even look me in the eye. She blames me for everything. I sighed, folding my arms. And why are you here, Camila? She looked up, eyes raw and glistening. I want a second chance. I shook my head. You already had it, I told her. The day I walked into your life and raised your daughter like my own, that was your second chance. And you torched it. Her lower lip quivered. I made a mistake. No, I said, my voice colder than I'd ever heard it. You made a choice. You didn't just cheat, you orchestrated my exit. You turned your daughter against me to chase a fantasy. And now that it's burned down, you want to crawl back through the ashes. She broke then, sobbing into her hands, shoulders heaving. Then she looked up, voice so low I almost missed it. I'm pregnant, she whispered. I stared at her, stunned. What? Right before Grant left? She explained, barely able to get the words out. We weren't being careful. I didn't even know until a month ago. He doesn't know. He's blocked me. I've got no job, no insurance, and I'm scared. That's the truth. For a moment, the room spun, her words echoing. I felt sorry for her. God, I did. But not enough to repeat the cycle. I'm not your rescue plan. I told her, voice calm, almost detached. I was your lifeline once. You cut the rope. This time you drown alone. I opened the door. She didn't argue. She stood up, eyes hollow, and stepped out into the rain without a word. I watched her walk down the porch steps, shoulders hunched, her silhouette swallowed by the night. I thought that was the end of it. But then Lana showed up. She came to my office at work, 20 years old now, taller, sharper around the edges. Colder, harder. But there was still that same spark in her eye, the one she got whenever she wanted something. I want to move in with you, she announced, bold and blunt, barely giving me a moment to react. Mom's a mess. I can't be around her. You were the only real parent I ever had. I raised an eyebrow. Do you remember what you said to me? I asked evenly. She shifted, uncomfortable. When you backed your mother. I continued. When you told me Grant could give you a better life? Lana looked away, jaw tight. I was a kid. You were old enough to choose. I countered. You weren't just siding with your mother. You rubbed salt in the wound. You made it clear I was disposable. She snapped her head back toward me, defensive. So what? People screw up. You're really going to hold that over my head forever. I stood up from my desk, steady. No, I told her, voice steady. I'm just finally accepting what I should have known a long time ago. Her brow furrowed. What? That I was never your father, I said. I just played the role while it was convenient. She blinked at me like I'd slapped her. You don't mean that. I do, I said, cold and unflinching. And now you're looking for a place to stay. But I'm not a shelter. I'm not your backup plan. You made your bed, Lana. Lie in it. Her eyes flared with hurt, then anger, and she stormed out, slamming the door to my office so hard the frame rattled. That night, I poured myself a drink and stood by the window, staring at the city skyline. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not because justice was served, but because I had finally stopped carrying other people's consequences. Some betrayals cut so deep you never fully recover. But some lessons make you sharper, stronger. I gave everything to people who measured love and money. And when the money vanished, they remembered I existed. Too bad I'd already learned to forget them. 3 months passed. I thought the storm had finally settled. I was wrong. The envelope arrived on a Monday, thick, yellow, and stamped with big black letters. Legal notice, family court. My stomach turned before I even opened it. Inside was a petition for spousal support and retroactive compensation for step-parental abandonment. Camila was suing me. The same woman who left me for her boss. The same woman who told me I wasn't enough. Now she wanted me to pay her monthly support because she was pregnant, unemployed, and had grown accustomed to a lifestyle I once helped provide. She listed everything in the filing: the mortgage I used to pay, the car I had leased for her, my supposed emotional obligation to Lana as a stepfather, and unbelievably, a claim that the profits from selling my education app should be shared because she had emotionally supported my teaching career during our short 3-year marriage. I read it twice, stunned, then laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that bounced off the walls. Then I called Ariana Reyes, my lawyer. Ruthless. Brilliant. Zero tolerance for games. When I forwarded her the documents, she called me the same afternoon. They really think you'll roll over, she said, voice flat, unimpressed. I sighed. What's our play? We file a motion to dismiss with prejudice. She replied without missing a beat. Then we gather every shred of evidence that shows what really happened. Do it, I told her. We went to work. Bank statements, text messages, emails, calendar events, everything. Ariana built a binder so thick it could have stopped a bullet, with color-coded tabs, timelines, signed documentation, the works. The court date came fast. Camila showed up in court wearing a modest dress and carrying her pregnancy like a fragile prop. Her lawyer, a budget family law hack with dramatic pauses and too much hair gel, tried to paint me as the villain. Mr. Carter abandoned his wife and stepdaughter, he intoned, practically dripping sympathy. His sudden wealth does not excuse his duty to provide. After all, love isn't something you just turn off. And financial stability is a moral obligation. I nearly choked on my water. Ariana rose calmly, almost amused, and handed the judge the binder we'd prepared. Your Honor, she said smoothly, these are the facts. She laid out every receipt, every timeline, the signed email exchanges where Camila admitted the affair, the bank transfers I'd made to support her even after she left me, the records showing that Grant and Camila had moved in together 2 weeks before I was even served divorce papers. A copy of the prenup sat right there on the evidence table, the same one Camila had voluntarily signed when we got married, waiving any rights to alimony or future earnings. Then Ariana went in for the kill shot. She stepped forward, eyes steady, voice cool. Your Honor, she began, clear and crisp, my client was removed from the life of this child by Camila and her daughter's explicit choice. Now that her relationship with Grant has ended, she is attempting to retroactively reclassify my client's generosity as a legal obligation. She slid a flash drive across the table like it weighed nothing. We would like to play Exhibit D. The courtroom speakers clicked on. Lana's voice crackled from a video she'd once posted on social media. My mom deserves more than a broke teacher. Grant's not just richer, he's smarter, hotter, and actually going somewhere. We're upgrading. The room went dead silent. I glanced at Camila. She looked like the floor had dropped out beneath her, eyes glassy, hands trembling. The judge leaned forward, unimpressed, voice heavy with exhaustion. I've seen some shameless attempts in my time, he said. But this takes the cake. Camila's lawyer had gone sheet white, staring down at his notepad like he might be sick. The judge continued, flipping through Ariana's binder with a stern, deliberate patience. Mrs. Carter, he said, you divorced this man. You left him. You entered a relationship with another man of your own free will. You received no threats, no financial coercion, and no abuse. In fact, Mr. Carter's documentation shows he went above and beyond to support you and your daughter, who, may I remind you, he has no legal obligation to. And now you want him to fund your life because your choices didn't pan out. He paused, then looked her square in the eye. Request denied. This case is dismissed with prejudice. And Mrs. Carter, consider this fair warning. Any future attempt to reopen this case could be considered harassment. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stood, nodded at Ariana, and walked out of that courtroom feeling like I could finally breathe again. Outside, I barely made it down the courthouse steps before I saw her. Lana. She was waiting, arms folded tight across her chest, jaw locked like stone. You really couldn't just help us, could you? She fired at me, eyes full of hurt and accusation. I turned to face her, steady, unshaken. My voice calm but firm. I did help. For 3 years. I told Lana, looking straight into her eyes, I loved you like you were mine. But you made your choice. You both did this. This is just the consequence finally catching up. She opened her mouth to argue, but then Camila stepped out from behind her, looking so small and broken it almost startled me. You won't even help with the baby? She asked, voice cracking, one hand protectively resting on her belly. I stared at her stomach, then met her eyes, steady and unflinching. That baby has a father, I said. Just not me. Best of luck. I turned and walked away. For good this time. 6 months later, I was in Denver. I'd taken a position as Director of Academic Innovation for a national education nonprofit, something that made me feel purposeful again. I bought a new house, adopted a dog, a big, goofy Labrador that reminded me what trust looked like, and, slowly, I met someone new. Someone who didn't measure my worth in income or prestige, who didn't see me as a stepping stone. Camila gave birth and moved in with her mother. Grant never resurfaced. Lana? Last I heard, she dropped out of school. She tried messaging again, but I left it on read. Because some doors don't just close, they lock forever. Now for the second story. When I, Everett, was 20, I got my girlfriend, Linda at the time, pregnant. I was scared. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to be like my dad. He bailed. Left us in the dirt like we were nothing. I swore I'd never be that kind of man. So I manned up and married her. It wasn't romantic. It was survival. I was working full-time, trying to go to school at night, barely making rent, barely making sense of anything. We struggled. God, we were broke. But we made it work somehow. We were just two scared kids trying to raise another scared kid. For 8 years, we held it together. Barely. The love faded pretty early on. I think we both knew it. But I kept pushing through for Ryan. He was my world. I didn't care how exhausted I was or how many hours I put in at work. When I had him on weekends, he got all of me. No distractions. No excuses. Daddy, can we go to the lake again? He'd ask, eyes shining. You bet, bud. I'd say, ruffling his hair. Pack your fishing rod. And don't forget snacks. We're catching the big one today. We'd hike, fish, kick a soccer ball around the park. Sometimes we just sat on the grass and watched clouds, making up silly stories. I made every damn moment count. Because I remembered what it felt like growing up without a dad. I remembered birthdays with an empty chair. I remembered my mom crying in the next room while I pretended not to hear. I swore my son would never feel that way. Then came the day everything changed. I came home early one Friday. I'd forgotten my toolbox and needed it for a job. I walked into the house, keys still jingling in my hand, and there he was. Some guy, sitting at my goddamn kitchen table like he belonged there. Shirtless, drinking coffee from one of my mugs. Linda just looked at me, blank. Like I was the one intruding. I stared at her. Seriously, Linda? She didn't say a word. Didn't even flinch. Just kept that same expression, like she couldn't be bothered. I nodded once, jaw tight. Got it. I walked out without another word. Drove straight to my buddy Darren's place and crashed on his couch. Filed for divorce the next day. I wasn't going to let that wreck the one thing I cared most about, being Ryan's dad. I kept my weekends. I stayed involved. I made it clear from day one I wanted to co-parent like adults. And for a couple of years, it worked. Ryan and I were close. Real close. Dad, Dad, he'd yell when I pulled up, running down the steps with his backpack bouncing behind him. Guess what? I got a goal in soccer. He loved my family. My mom spoiled him rotten. He made friends in my neighborhood. We had our thing, our bond. He was my little guy. I thought that would always matter more than anything else. But then she got a new boyfriend. This guy had money. Took them on trips, Disneyland, cruises, fancy resorts. All the stuff I could never afford. At first, I tried to be the understanding dad. It's good he's getting to see the world, I told myself. As long as he's happy. But the cancellation started. First once a month. Hey, sorry, Linda would text. We're going to Palm Springs this weekend. Ryan won't be coming. Then more often. Birthdays. Holidays. Then not at all. I'd call. No answer. I'd text. Nothing. My calls, texts went unanswered. I called Linda, called her over and over. Begged her just to let me talk to Ryan. Just to hear his voice. Nothing. 3 damn months. No contact. Just radio silence from the kid who used to call me his hero. The same kid who used to run into my arms like I was the sun. I was losing it. My mom, my sister, even my uncle, they saw what it was doing to me. So they rallied, helped me scrape together enough money to hire a lawyer. We sued Linda for parental alienation. I was ready to fight tooth and nail. I wasn't going to give up on my son. But the court didn't see it that way. They said he was establishing stability with his primary household. They said I was interfering. They said a lot of bullshit. I lost. Worse, on top of losing visitation, I got slapped with increased child support. I stood there outside that courtroom, completely gutted. I felt hollow, like the wind could blow right through me and I'd collapse. Then her damn lawyer, the guy who'd sat across from me in 3 different hearings with that smug look, he stopped me in the hallway. He adjusted his tie and said, real smooth, "My ex is willing to cancel child support if you agree to give up your paternal rights." I stared at him. "You serious?" I asked. He nodded. "This is what both your ex-wife and your son want." That stopped me cold. "What?" I asked. "Ryan?" He said that. He shrugged, but I could tell from his face that it wasn't a bluff. They let me speak to Ryan. Just once. Both lawyers present. One of the worst days of my life. He sat across from me, stiff as a board, barely looked me in the eye. I swallowed hard. "Ryan, do you really want me to give up my rights to you?" He looked up, expression blank. "Yeah." Just like that. Flat voice. No emotion. I tried to stay calm. "That means I won't be your dad anymore. You won't see me, or Grandma, or Uncle Mike ever again. You get that?" He met my eyes. Cold. Like he was asking me to pass the salt. "Yeah. So." I swear. I felt my whole chest collapsing on itself. My hands were shaking under the table. My stomach was twisting in ways I didn't think possible. He doesn't mean it, I told myself. He's just confused. She's filled his head with lies. But it wasn't just his words. It was the look in his eyes. Like I was a stranger. Like I was some weird guy bothering him at the bus stop. From that day forward, nothing. No calls. No emails. Not a word. 14 years of silence. And I almost didn't survive it. I lost the will to keep pretending I was okay. I started drinking. Hard. Not the casual beers after work kind. I'm talking about waking up and reaching for a bottle. Morning, noon, and night. I spiraled. Fast. I'd go to work smelling like vodka and sadness. My friends stopped coming around. One by one, they disappeared. Couldn't blame them. I wasn't exactly fun to be around. Just a bitter, angry drunk clinging to empty bottles and broken memories. My family tried. God knows they tried. My mom would leave voicemails, my sister would stop by with food, my uncle even offered to pay for rehab. But I pushed them all away. Didn't want help. I wanted to disappear. Then one night, I drank until I passed out on the couch. I don't even remember most of it. Just flashes. The glow of the TV. The bottle slipping out of my hand. I didn't even know I was puking until I started choking on it. I couldn't breathe. My body convulsed and thrashed like it was trying to save itself. I aspirated. I would have died right there in my living room, alone, if not for my neighbor. Turns out the mailman had delivered a package to her door by mistake. She came over to bring it to me, saw me through the window, convulsing on the couch, pale and shaking. She called 911. They told me later I was minutes from death. 2 weeks in the hospital. Aspiration pneumonia. Hooked up to machines, tubes down my throat, unable to speak, just thinking. Lying there breathing through a damn machine, I realized I didn't want to die like this. I didn't want him to be the last chapter in my story. So I moved back to my hometown. Fresh start. Quiet town. New job working maintenance at the high school. I started therapy. Joined a gym. I committed. For straight years, I showed up for myself. Dug through every piece of my broken self and tried to stitch it back together. It was hell. Therapy cracked me wide open. Made me confront stuff I'd buried since I was a kid. Stuff about my dad. About Linda. About Ryan. About how I'd wrapped my whole identity around being a father and then lost that and didn't know who I was without it. But slowly, something changed. I found peace. I stopped needing answers. Stopped screaming into the void for closure. I just let go. And then I met her. My wife. The love of my damn life. She had an 11-year-old son from a previous relationship. I kept my distance at first. Too scared. Too broken. I didn't want to get attached to another kid. Didn't think I could survive another loss. But that boy, he broke through my walls. Kind. Smart. Funny. So damn full of heart. He'd leave little drawings on my desk. "This is us fishing," he'd say, proud, holding it up like a masterpiece. He'd sit next to me during games, share his popcorn, ask me to help with homework, not because he needed it, but because he wanted the time with me. "Hey Everett," he asked one night, pencil in hand, "do you think black holes could ever, swallow the Earth?" I blinked, chuckled. "Well, I guess it's possible, but not likely." "What?" He shrugged. "I just want to know if I'll still have to do my math homework tomorrow." He made me laugh when I hadn't laughed in years. I didn't want to love him, but I couldn't help it. And then, on his 18th birthday, he sat me down. Serious look on his face. I want you to adopt me, he said. I stared at him. You what? He nodded. I've been thinking about it for a long time. I want your name. I want to be your son. I lost it. Full-on ugly crying. Snot. Tears, the works. I couldn't even talk. I just hugged him and held on like I was afraid he'd vanish. That boy chose me. He didn't have to, but he did. And I'll never stop being grateful for that. He's in the Marines now, serving his country. And I still text him every morning like clockwork. Life moved on. I've got 2 younger kids now. My son just turned 4, and my daughter's 18 months. They're my world. Every morning starts with little feet running into the kitchen, messy hair and sleepy eyes, calling daddy, like I hung the moon. My wife, God, she's incredible. Patient, brilliant, stronger than anyone I've ever known. She saw me when I couldn't even see myself. My career took off, too. Somehow, from the wreckage, I built something real. Something solid. I rebuilt from the ashes and made a life I never thought I'd have. I became the man I used to dream about being back when I was just a broken 20-year-old kid with a baby and no clue how to survive. I am a comeback story. I went from a man nobody could love, not even himself, to a husband, a father of 3, a man with a purpose. I survived. Then about 3 weeks ago, I got a call at work. Unknown number. I answered out of habit more than anything. Hello, I said, half distracted, still looking at emails. There was a pause. Then a woman's voice, familiar but aged. Everett, it's Michelle, Linda's sister. My stomach tensed. I hadn't heard that name in 14 years. I didn't say anything. She cleared her throat. I just thought you should know. Linda passed away. I didn't ask how. Didn't ask when. Didn't ask why. I said, okay, and hung up. That was it. I felt nothing. Just a blank space where the grief used to live. She was a chapter that closed a long time ago. Her and her entire family. They hadn't been part of my life in over a decade, and I had zero interest in reopening that book. Whatever happened to her was no longer mine to carry. But life wasn't done throwing punches. On the 4th of July, we were getting ready for a picnic. My wife was packing the cooler, the kids were running around with sparklers and flags, and I was loading the car when there was a knock at the door. I walked over, wiped my hands, looked through the glass, and I froze. It was him, Ryan, my biological son, 26 now, standing on my doorstep like a ghost from a life I thought I'd buried. He looked older, taller. He had her eyes, Linda's eyes. And in that instant, I felt my whole body lock up like I'd been hit in the chest. I opened the door slowly. He stepped back, a little unsure. Hello, he said. I'm Ryan. I'm your son. Without a second of hesitation, I looked him dead in the eye and said, no, you're not. I have 2 sons, and you're not either one of them. Now please leave my property. His face just cracked. He stood there stunned, like he couldn't process what he'd just heard. Like he expected a hug, a reunion, a hallmark moment. But I shut the door. I could feel him still standing there. I didn't have to look. I felt it. That weight. That presence. Like he was trying to make sense of what just happened, trying to reach back through time to a man I no longer was. Eventually, he left. I texted my entire family. Told them he'd shown up. Told them, in no uncertain terms, that if anyone made contact with him, I would cut them off permanently. And I wasn't bluffing. I meant every word. It's been 14 years. He made his choice. He looked me in the eyes and walked away. I gave him every chance. Every damn chance. And he didn't just reject me. He erased me. He erased all of us. Like we never mattered. Like we were a bad dream he woke up from and never wanted to talk about again. My mom died with tears in her eyes, still asking if he ever mentioned her. Still holding on to hope he'd come back, just to say he remembered. But he didn't. Not once. My dad, who finally came back into my life after I hit rock bottom. He spent his last years asking if he should have tried harder when I was a kid. If maybe he could have spared me the pain I was now feeling watching my own son do the same damn thing to me. And I didn't have the heart to tell him the truth, that I didn't know. My sister? She was my rock. Held my hand through detox. Stayed up late on the phone while I sobbed in parking lots, too ashamed to walk into my own house reeking of liquor and regret. She helped me hire the lawyer. She sent care packages when I moved back home. And her daughters? They used to call Ryan cousin. They made him birthday cards and saved him a seat at Christmas. Until they couldn't. Until they had to learn not to say his name around Grandma because it made her cry. He wasn't just gone. He became a ghost. A ghost we all had to pretend never existed. No photos. No stories. Like ripping pages out of a book and trying to read the story anyway. And now? Now he shows up. Now, because his mother dies? Now he wants to come claim some kind of emotional inheritance? Some last-minute redemption? No. Screw that. And just when I thought that door was closed for good, I found out who opened it. My sister. The one who stayed with me through the storm. The one who promised to help me fight. She gave him my number. She told him where I lived. She told my ex-sister-in-law how to find me again. I confronted her. Face to face. I didn't yell. I just looked at her and asked, why? She broke. Just stood there, eyes filling up. He called me, she said. After he came to your house. He said, he cried, He said he didn't expect you to slam the door. He didn't know how much it had hurt you. He said, he wants to make things right. I just shook my head. You don't get it. She grabbed my arm. Please. Just one meeting. For Mom's sake. For closure. I cut her off. No. Stop right there. Everett. I don't care. I said. I really don't. If you want to keep talking to him, that's your choice. But if you do, we're done. No birthdays. No holidays. No photos of my kids. Done. She hasn't responded to any of my texts since. My wife, my in-laws, my kids, they're all on my side. They get it. My oldest son, the one who chose me, he was furious when he heard what happened. He said, you're my dad. And he's right. I am a dad. Just not his dad. When I told my wife what the kids said, she cried. I think back to all those years ago, how he looked at me like I didn't matter. Like I was just some stranger on the street making a scene. No anger. No sadness. Just that cold, flat stare. My wife sat beside me on the porch that night, holding my hand while the fireworks cracked in the distance and the kids chased each other through the yard. You don't owe him forgiveness just because he regrets the life he chose, she said softly. And she's right. That's what this is, regret. Not love. Not accountability. Just regret. Maybe Linda filled his head with lies. Maybe that boyfriend promised him the world, bought his loyalty with Disney trips and new shoes, and then bailed once she got sick. Maybe now Ryan feels lost, like he's adrift without a compass, and he's reaching for something that looks like stability. But I'm not his parachute. I was his father, and he burned that bridge. Then he pissed on the ashes. And now, after 14 years, he comes back like I'd just be waiting at the door with a hug and a cold beer? Like the last decade and a half didn't happen? I get it. He was 12. Maybe he didn't know what he was doing. Maybe he was manipulated. But here's what I do know. He was 14 when I almost died, choking on my own vomit. That made the news. He could have seen it. He didn't reach out. He was 16 when my mom, his grandmother, died crying for him. Still hoping she'd hear from him. Still believing he'd come back. He was 20 when my adopted son started calling me dad. That's 6 years of silence, right there. He had years to pick up the phone, to write a letter, to send a damn Facebook message. He chose not to. And now that his mother is gone, suddenly I'm the one he wants to reconnect with? Now I'm supposed to be some safe harbor? I don't think so. He made a choice. And therapy taught me something I hold tight. I get to make a choice too. And mine is this, undone. I have 2 sons. I have a daughter. I have a wife who loves me without condition. I have in-laws who treat me like I've always been part of their story. I have a family that I fought tooth and nail to build after being shattered into pieces. I have a career I'm proud of. A home I never thought I'd have. A legacy I bled for. And he's not part of it. I know this sounds cold. I know some of you reading this will say I should forgive. That people change. That maybe he's really hurting now. And maybe that's all true. But I need to protect the man I've become. I need to protect my family. And most of all, I need to protect the peace. I spent over a decade clawing my way back to peace. Inch by inch. Breath by breath. You don't come back from that kind of pain quickly. It's not a switch you flip or a chapter you skip. It's a slow, brutal crawl out of the dark. Because if you had seen the look in his eyes that day, when I asked him, do you really want me to give up my rights to you? And he looked me dead in the face and said, yeah, so? You'd understand. That wasn't a confused kid. That was someone who didn't care. Not about me. Not about my family. Not about any of it. And I had to learn not to care in return, just to survive. I had to turn the volume all the way down on that voice in my head that used to beg for him to come back. I had to mute the memories, the what-ifs, the guilt, the wondering. I had to bury the part of me that still thought maybe, just maybe, he'd wake up one day and remember who I was. Because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have made it. Now my sister's calling me, crying, saying he's trying, saying he wants to apologize, saying I should just meet him halfway. He's grown now, Ev. He's trying to be a man, she said. You're punishing a grown man for a 12-year-old's mistake. And maybe she believes that. Maybe she truly thinks this is about a boy who didn't know better. But here's what I know. If he hadn't shown up on my doorstep, I would have lived the rest of my life without ever speaking his name again. And I had made peace with that. My sister and my mother, they both lived in hope for years that one day he would just show up. That one day, he'd walk through the door and everything would fall back into place, like a paused movie starting again. They never stopped holding their breath. My sister was 12 when Ryan was born. She practically helped raise him, changed diapers, stayed up with him when Linda was too tired. She loved that kid like he was hers. Hell, she used to carry him around on her hip and call him her little man. He adored her back then. They were inseparable. And my mom, she worshipped the ground he walked on. He was her first grandson, her golden boy. When we walked into her house, she'd already have his favorite snacks waiting on the counter, and she'd clear her whole day just to be with him. He was royalty in her eyes. So when he disappeared from our lives, it shattered her. She couldn't understand it. No matter how many times I tried to explain what had happened, how he looked me in the eyes and said so, like I meant nothing, it didn't compute for her. Her heart just couldn't accept it. She died with that pain still lodged deep in her chest, never understanding why he abandoned us like that. So yeah, I get why my sister's clinging to this fantasy. She wants to believe that now, after all this time, we'll reunite. That we'll hug and cry and magically become one big happy family again. But I think she's blinded by that hope, by that delusion. I don't blame her. I really don't. But I also can't go along with it. And I 100% agree with what many of you are saying. We are strangers now. That man who stood on my porch on the 4th of July, that's not my son. I don't know him. And this won't end with a quick talk or some tidy moment of closure. He'll want more. He'll want to meet his siblings. He'll want to come around, be part of the life I've built, the life I bled for. But here's the thing. I don't let strangers around my kids. Period. Some people have asked how he even found me. Well, apparently Linda, before she passed, still kept in touch with my sister. And after she died, my ex-sister-in-law reached out and asked if my sister wanted contact with Ryan. Why? For what purpose? I have no idea. My sister tried to explain her side, but I cut her off. Because honestly, I don't care. I know that probably sounds cold. Awful even. But giving up and not caring is how I survived. I buried that chapter for a reason. For the longest time, I wanted to believe it was all manipulation. That maybe he was just a pawn in Linda's game. That maybe he was too young to know better. But that story doesn't hold up anymore. Because the truth is, I always told him I loved him. Always. I showed him I cared. I was present. In 4 years of joint custody, I never missed a weekend. Not once. I was late for pickup twice, and I called ahead both times. Linda never paid for a babysitter, not once, because either I or someone from my family was always there. I went to every school event, every parent-teacher conference. I was listed as his primary emergency contact until the very end. I called him 3 to 4 times a week, every week. We had our routines, our life. And then one day, he just stopped answering. He told the school it was his mother's decision. Then later, he said it. Said he didn't want to visit. He made that choice. Not at 5 years old. At 12. And maybe 12 isn't old enough to grasp the full weight of a decision like that. But it was old enough to look me in the eyes and rip my heart out. So yeah, I get why people want to write the narrative where he was a confused kid, a victim of circumstance. I get why that's the story they want to believe. I wish I could buy into that. But the truth is, I just don't have the heart to care anymore. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.